Hey, hi everyone, this is Dilip, and in this video, I'm to explain about a Railyard service which is used by Stripe. This service is basically used to train machine learning models rapidly without worrying about the infrastructure part. So you can build your machine learning models and train it. So let's get started. Now, before moving into the Railyard, I just wanted to explain few topics to you so that in case you are not aware with these topics, it will help you to understand the actual Railyard concept more easily. So the first topic that is Docker and Kubernetes, which is very frequently used here. So basically, Docker, if I have to explain in a one word, is like a more of a compressed version for all the codes that you have written and the environment config files that you have, so in an image format, which basically provides an isolation for your application. So let's suppose your application is kind of getting accessed from multiple places. So now if like due to one of the server attack or something goes wrong to your service, then only the one of the containers will kind of get affected, the others will not get affected. So it is like used very vastly. If I have to give one real world example to you, let's say lead code. So if you run some virus code or something like that in the lead code editor, then it will not hang the entire lead code system. It's gonna affect the one that is containing your code. So that you can think of it like that. So it provides the isolation for your code. So that is what Docker does. And the Kubernetes is something like, now let's say you have like multiple containers and you wanted to perform some task to it, like what kind of resources that task should contain. Let's suppose a task kind of fails, then you wanted to restart it. In case a particular task required some more amount of resources like a CPU and GPU, so those that thing you can provide it. So it basically used for that. Now, moving into machine learning models and training. Now, so machine learning model, you can think of like you wanted to build a predictive model. Let's suppose like you have some data that you feed to a machine learning model. Now, once you feed that, you use that model to predict on a newer set of data. So that's what the basic about machine learning training. It's ultimately a very big concept. If you want to get into details, you can uh, check on Google and other resources, that there are like a lot of knowledge about it. Now, coming to the third topic, API communication. So this is something like very vastly used in industry. So let's suppose you are opening a website, facebook.com. Now, when you go to one of the pages, it in the backend it kind of hit to a certain API endpoint, and that backend service return a response to you to display all the information, your profile related information or anything. So it kind of used to communicate between services, or from a front end to a back end. So the API endpoint is like a communication for communicating between two services it kinds of use for. So that's the basic, I mean, definition about the topics, and it will help you if you are not familiar with these topics to understand the Railyard more clearly. Now let's move on to the Railyard, which is basically used to training machine learning models rapidly. Stripe uses it internally, and they have very well structured explanation about it, what it actually does. Now coming to the part like what the objective of Railyard is. So it's basically to scale model training. It's like let's suppose you have a one Python file uh, written all the machine learning code there to train a basic data model. Now it will be easier to do the all the libraries and other things for that, and the type of resources that you need for that single file. Now but when it is when you have like lots of machine learning models, you kind of need some form of automation, that you don't need to worry about the infrastructure part, that what kind of resources it needs, and based on the libraries and other things that you are using, you just wanted to focus on your model building part, that the model should work really really well, and the other stuff that related to the training that model, and how's the training going on. In case of failure, it should restart. That is something which the Railyard kind of took care. It allows basically to track how's your model training going, and it helps to do that more rapidly for a bigger infrastructure. So that's the basic objective of it. Now let's look at the architecture, like perspective, what's happening in it. Now let's suppose a client sent a API request to a Railyard endpoint. Now when it sends the request, what Railyard does is like it kind of creates a Kubernetes job for it, based on the input that he has received. So for example, this is one sample response that contains the model name, that contains the feature that these columns are there, where the data is basically coming from. It contains the data path, if you can see. Now once the input at the Railyard end is present, like the type of model that it, and how much resources it can take. It also predicts the opening point of that particular model, that where should that file should get access. And it provides all the library resources, like in Python there are libraries scikit-learn, xgboost, boost, frequently used for machine learning. So these libraries it kind of installed at the runtime. Now the once it has the resources, these information, it kind of fetch those information to Kubernetes. Now Kubernetes basically now use those information and start executing that through a worker chain that it has. Now once it kind of executing the job, now let's suppose a bigger machine learning model is there, so it's going to take a lot of time, right? So what it does is like it kind of Railyard API creates a job ID, uh, simple, and it kind of send it back to the client. Now using that particular job ID, client can request to Railyard API and monitor the status, like what's the particular status of that model, whether it is failed or it is kind of still running. So those things are there, and in the logs also, using that particular endpoint, it can check. So in the database it will basically store some form of S3 storage it uses. So as a job ID it can store, you can think of it as a hash map or something. So as a key it can store the job ID, and as a value it will store the model training related information that the Railyard API provides. So that's about the API design of it. Now just to explain you in a bit more detail, we'll go through one flow here. So let's suppose you sent an API request to a Railyard API with below information. So what you wanted to train on, what model type you want, like XGBoost or other models that you are using. So it will help them to install that on behalf of you. Now what parameters, right? So when you're training a machine learning model, you are providing a lot of parameters, the CPU, like the parameters, like in terms of like how many features it kind of includes. So those parameters you provided, what resources like CPU, GPU, or is it like a memory heavy uh, resource, memory heavy model, right? So those information when you provide it, now Railyard basically does the simple thing. It kind of uh, creates a Kubernetes job and provide you a tracking job ID. So it's like a simple, when you create a flight ticket or something, you get a PNR kind of a number to you. So similar way, it just give you that job ID, and using that job ID, you just can get the your trained model result and the complete logs related to that model. Now the one interesting part here is like it acts as a does the similar functionality as a Kubernetes only, but the problem is in Kubernetes they cannot do a lot of like parameter tuning based on their business requirements. So Here they can send like a lot of parameters related to their business, regarding what kind of project it is, what kind of trainer it is. So based on the project, it will be aware like in future how uh, heavy that model can look like, and what kind of Kubernetes job it should allocate, and what kind of CPU GPU resources that should be there. So that it does the job easier. Now moving on to the part uh, like how it works. So it's like simple. You just write your ML logic in Python. You don't worry about the infrastructure or anything. You just call the Railyard API endpoint with the infrastructure related information that you need, and it does the job for you. So that is the main advantage here. Now coming to the result, what we get from it, so it like a provides a common machine learning infrastructure and enable teams across Stripe to operate independently and focus on their local ML modeling goals. So simple, they can just do the focus on their ML modeling part and don't need to worry about uh, what kind of resources, what kind of infrastructure related resources that they need to focus on to make the model work. It kind of autonomously does that for them. Now, yeah, so that is it. Thanks for watching.